So Malcolm Jenkins is signed. He's heading to New Orleans with the Saints. They have signed him. Now, terms of the deal I have not found yet. We'll get into the Nick Foles stuff. Dave Weinberg, 97.3, ESPN.com. Check out his extra points column on Malcolm Jenkins. He covered Malcolm Jenkins for his entire 6-year career in Philadelphia. He also covered Nick Foles, by the way. And we'll get his take now on his thoughts on the Eagles' decision, Dave, to allow Malcolm Jenkins to walk. And I know that reading your column, you are not a big fan of this decision, are you?
No, Mike, I'm not. I think they made a big mistake. I know, the naysayers and the critics will say that he's lost a step, and maybe he has, but he's still one of the best safeties, certainly better than anything they have right now. And in terms of leadership, that's going to be the biggest void that they're going to have to fill with him, and I don't think they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, they were in a tough spot. I mean, do you agree with the fact that they had to make a tough decision? 32 years old, he wanted to be paid way more money. So they were kind of at that crossroads, and they've been down this road before with the Dawkins. Do you find it similar to the Dawkins decision?
Yeah, I do, and you would think they would have learned from their mistake. I mean, granted, he's not the legend and the that in Philadelphia that Brian Dawkins was, but I think he's kind of like the same player. I think they're both in a similar stage in their career, and so I get it. And I know he wanted more money, but I don't think it was going to be like drastically more than they could afford. If they sign someone else, they're going to have to give him similar money anyway. So I don't get why you can't give him like a 1-year or 2-year deal and go from there. Because like I said, I don't. Another reason I don't like the move is you don't know what you're going to replace him with. I mean, There's some talk about Von Bell coming over from New Orleans, which would be a nice upgrade. And Rodney McLeod has said that he can step up and be the leader. I have my doubts about that. I mean, Rodney's a good player when he's healthy, but he's kind of like a quiet guy, and I don't know that he'll command the respect of his teammates the way that Malcolm did. Not to say that he can't, but that remains to be seen. I think Malcolm was kind of entrenched in the community as far as a leader and a player.
Well, I want to ask you that because I know you know Malcolm very well. You've covered him his entire career here. Is this more of a loss on the field or possibly in the locker room? And that's not minimized. I mean, the last 2 years, this team could have really gone south and sideways had maybe not Jenkins kept the team together and got them to 2 playoffs when realistically there were times of the last 2 seasons it did look like that was where these seasons were headed.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Mike. It's a definitely a bigger loss in the locker room as far as the culture and the leadership standpoint. They, like you said, they've been there with a slew of injuries in the secondary. It would have been very easily for them to go in the tank. I mean, they were losing like 3/4 of their starting secondary, with various ailments. You're talking about plugging in guys like Cravon LeBlanc, who was on the streets when they play, and then all of a sudden he's playing corner for you. It's just and Malcolm was the glue that kept that secondary together. He's the one who met with those players after practice every day in the film room at night. Got them up to speed, made sure they knew their assignments, made sure that gave them a shot at boost the confidence that they needed it, and that's the part of the game that many people probably don't realize. But it's a very much an important part of the game. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have those veteran leaders to pull the team together, then you're not going to win many games.
I'm not saying that I'm happy the Eagles did that. I think this is a loss in terms of the locker room and, as you mentioned, on the field as well. But you also mentioned the 1 year or 2 year deal type of mode for him. I don't know if that would have gotten it done, and I feel like we need to wait to see what the deal was for the Saints before we can really assess this deeper when it comes to what Howie and what Malcolm spoke about.
Probably true. I mean, there was I don't know that a 1 or 2 year deal would have got it done, but I have a feeling that it might have. Malcolm seemed pretty entrenched in the Philadelphia community. I mean, he's going out of his way, more than out of his way, to contribute to the various social platforms to his foundation. And he seems to be known in the Philadelphia area. He even said on Twitter today that, Philadelphia is still going to be his home, so he'll be seeing people around. And I don't know. I just think that some things are more, I don't want to say more important money because it is a business, but if you have the chance, if you can be I would have think the two sides could have been able to reach an amicable agreement and come to terms that would have satisfied both guys. But I guess the Eagles, for whatever reason, they've chosen to move on.
Yeah, I definitely see that it might have been possible to do that, to make it work for both ways. I just feel like Howie and Doug came out and stated to us, which I know you can't really take everything they say right from their mouths because we saw what happened with Mike Groh, so sometimes you do question it. But they came out and stated, we're going to get younger, get faster, retool this bad boy, and then they get rid of Jason Peters and Malcolm Jenkins. So do you see that they are, like, do you take anything out of them doing what they are actually telling us they are going to do?
Yeah. I mean, they are trying to get younger, but I would argue that Jenkins is probably the exception to that rule. I mean, you're talking about Sproles and Deshaun Jackson and Jason Peters, guys who break down almost every week, miss chunks of the season with various injuries. Malcolm hasn't missed a snap in 2 years. And the only time he's been off the field with the Eagles in the 6 years he's been here is because when they benched the starters for that meaningless season finale against Dallas in 2017. I mean, he is the in terms of consistency, reliability, he's the poster boy for that, and I just think that outweighs his age. I don't think he's dropped off to the point like Peters and Sproles and even Deshaun Jackson by any stretch.
Dave Weinberg, 97.3 ESPN.com, his extra points columns up. Let me ask you about this then. Jim Schwartz, Jalen Mills. Mills, they're reportedly going to try to use as a hybrid player. And we know how much he likes Mills, seemingly. Does it make sense to you that Schwartz has gone to Mills and said, look, I trust you more than anybody else. I need you to turn into our Malcolm Jenkins?
That's a pretty deep request. He is a big Jalen Mills fan, and I think Jalen is better than what people give him credit for, but there's no way he can accomplish that role. I just don't think.
So does that mean then, Dave, that Jim Schwartz potentially has to change his role of this defense? I mean, he's been running a defense with Malcolm Jenkins in it for the last 4 or 5 years. Now all of a sudden that player's gone.
Right. I mean, like I said, McLeod can possibly be the leader of the secondary if you want him, if you want him to be, but he doesn't have that strong personality the way that Malcolm did. And, he's going to have to revamp some things. I think I might put Avonte Maddox in that role. He's proven that he can play both corner and safety. I think he's a pretty good player, faster than most of those guys, a pretty short tackler, I think, as well. I would think that he would be the better fit rather than Jalen Mills in that hybrid role.
Yeah, I know that we're in a spot here where ultimately the Eagles have a lot of decisions that they need to make on the defense, but you lose your leader like that, it almost doesn't matter which player they replace him with because, as you've kind of chronicled, Dave, what goes on in that locker room might never be the same again. I mean, that player, Jenkins, has maybe saved these last 2 seasons.
You could argue that. I think if you're in the NFL, you should be able to carry yourself and handle your job without having to lean on a veteran, so to speak. But you do need that galvanizing guy. You need that guy that can bring that team together in times of adversity, which they certainly faced in the last 2-3 years, particularly on defense and in the secondary. And Malcolm was that guy. Let's face it, he was the guy who brought the team together when they really needed it the most, and that's a role that they're not going to be easily able to fill.
I just want to clarify that I do understand how valuable Malcolm Jenkins is to this organization, or was to this organization, but looking ahead, because this is the move. I mean, it happened. This is reality now, and we talk about the leadership. I know how big his leadership role was, but I feel like there's a lot of people out there that now claim that it's screwed. There's no chance that anybody else can step up and lead. And I know that maybe it might take 5 people to lead as great as Malcolm Jenkins did. But if you do have 5 people in that locker room that can come together and make it work, whether it's Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Jackson, and you have a group of guys, Jalen Mills, and they do the same thing that Malcolm Jenkins did, well, it can still be a factor. So what do you say to another group of people leading just as well as Malcolm did, but it's not one person, it's a group of individuals?
Yeah, well, it's always been that case. They have a veterans committee where they have 5 or 6 guys who meet with Doug once a week to go over, the culture of the team. Anybody has any complaints or grievances or whatever. And there are different guys for different spots. Carson Wentz, by virtue of his contract and his position as a quarterback, he is the leader of the offense. And you do have guys like Brandon Graham who have been around for a long time, and they can certainly help fill that role. But I just don't know that there's that one guy that you can really lean on. And, Brandon might – if I were to pick one, it would be Brandon Graham, just for the fact of his long tenure with the team, and he has the respect of that entire defense. The other guys I'm not really sure about. I mean, as good as Carson can be and his potential, I mean, you had those grapes within the locker room the last couple of years about his ability to lead the team. And I don't mean to pick on Rodney McLeod, but I'm not sure he's the guy. Jalen Mills doesn't play well enough to be able to command that defensive respect that most guys get. I guess Fletcher Cox probably, but I don't know that he has that kind of personality either. So it's really going to be interesting to see how they can overcome this and how they deal with it moving forward. I'm not to say that they can't. Yeah. I'm just saying that I think Malcolm's going to be tougher to replace than you might think.
I feel so weird because we had him on at the Super Bowl, Dave, on Radio Row. He was sitting right in front of me, and I had the quote in front of me. He said, let's see, where's the quote? Okay, honestly, I was hoping something would get done during the season. He didn't. He went on to say, I kept playing. I didn't complain. I went out there, and then he said, I do know that hopefully it will work itself out one way or another. I would love to be in Philly, make it my home, love the community, love my teammates there and the organization. But, business is business. And that line at the end is everything you need to know about this decision, I think. Was this a business decision, or do they think Malcolm Jenkins can't play anymore?
Boy, that's a tough call. Well, it ultimately is a business, Mike, and you've seen, as everybody has seen through the last, few years, no player is exempt from this, and they proved that with Brian Dawkins, Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, a couple other guys. Then when they think that their value isn't up to par with their performance, and then they move on. That's what executives get paid to do. They get paid to make those tough decisions, even if they're not necessarily the popular ones. But I guess they just come to the decision that Malcolm's performance isn't worth the money that he was asking for. And
do you think that he is
right or wrong?
Do you think he lost a step the last year or so?
He made some mistakes, but everybody does. I would say maybe half a step. I mean, there hasn't been any drastic drop off with him, I don't think, anyway.
If I told you they signed him for $14 million, would you say, you know what, that's a lot of money to give a 32-year-old safety? Or, nope, he played to the point where I'm okay with that deal?
Yeah, no, 14 would have been a little too much, I think. But I could think somewhere between 7 and 14 might work out a little better.
Well, I guess we'll find out when the terms of this deal. I think that's, Hunter, you brought it up. Right. That's the key. How much will he get in this deal? How much of this? Because, Dave, the Saints essentially said 32-year-old Malcolm Jenkins is an upgrade over 25-year-old Von Bell because they can't keep them both.
Right. That's true. Very true. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the numbers what the numbers turn out to be with those guys.
Well, Dave Weinberg has more thoughts on it on our website, 973ESPN.com. By the way, Nick Foles traded to the Bears. Are the Bears now a Super Bowl contender?
Yep, you can say you'll see him in the Super Bowl this year now. Man, Mickey Six is back.
Is that the next extra points column? Watch out for Bears Super Bowl run with Nick Foles.
That's right. There you go.
Oh, man. All right, Dave. Appreciate it, bud.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.
Man. Dave Weinberg, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.